What's up, y'all? Welcome to Three Brothers and a Shot of Milk. And today we're talking we're talking Star Wars. What is this called again?
Wow.
Tales of the
Wow.
Jedi.
It should have been called Tales of a Jedi, but Tales of the Jedi. Let me give you guys. I assume the IMDb synopsis won't spoil this whole thing, but it's kind of hard to think it wouldn't because it's really bite sized. But let's see. We'll give you the synopsis and we will jump in with our spoiler free review. It showcases animated shorts that feature Jedi from the prequel era.
Okay.
All
That's
right,
all it
that's it.
says.
That's all it says.
Well, yeehaw. That's
Well,
vague
there
as
it
heck.
is. Spoiler free thoughts. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was nice seeing all the other live action characters put into this world. It's surprisingly linear. It's not disjointed at all, I'd say.
I almost thought it was going to be anthology,
Mhm.
but it's not. For me, I thought it was okay. I feel like this. If you watch specifically Clone Wars and the animated stuff,
Mhm.
then this is up your alley. And if you had major issues with the prequels and the holes, but if you're kind of a casual watcher and didn't really watch Clone Wars and you're aware of the prequels, I don't really know how much this hits. This is very specific for a specific audience.
Yeah, it's for the Star Wars fans.
But
Yeah.
not just Star Wars fans. Like you've had to watch Clone Wars and like for some of these things to hit and make full sense. You can't just like, yeah, I watch the movies when they come out. Like this is like, no, you're
But
you're in.
this is it's for the Star Wars fans because you
Yeah.
got Jimmy Smits in it, and unless you watched uh Kenobi, then you're not really gonna pick up on.
Well, I'll say this is still kind of spoiler free. Like you have Ahsoka in it, right? And she
Mhm.
talks about how the princess was her friend. You only getting that from Clone Wars. Like you're not
Exactly.
getting that from the movies or TV shows. If you didn't watch Clone Wars, then you never saw that. So that's what I mean. And her character specifically was created out of the animation versus the movies. So if you've just watched the movies and you jumped into this, you still might be like, okay, where was
Mhm.
she this whole time? Well, they have like 4 seasons of its show where she's been this whole time.
Right,
You
and
know?
I mean, and that's also a good point. You know, some of the is this spoiler territory to
Well,
say
well,
some of the episodes really lead up to the climax and then cut out, and some of that climax is actually just in other content.
right, right. Oh, if Rich jump in, then we'll get spoiler.
I mean, I enjoyed it. It was good. Yeah, this is definitely for the Star Wars fans. If you're not in tune with the content, then a lot of it will go over your head. You really won't know what's going on. You really won't care about the characters like that. And what? Do
No,
you disagree?
I completely agree.
Okay. But other than that, it was a fun watch. It was kind of slow for the short content that it was. It was kind of I would say slow, but I guess I would say slow at some points.
It was slow because, like, all right, we're jumping into spoiler territory now. Spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. Sorry, you, my son, having a ball in the background.
Yeah,
So
it's
like,
good. We got to compete with it. Come on.
man.
Yeah.
So for example, I'm jumping ahead a bit. When we see Qui-Gon come back and talk about the threat, and in the following episode, it's his funeral. If you might know that he died in episode one, but if like that's not on the forefront of your mind, I don't think that episode impacts you. Like you
Mm.
understand, but you're like, okay, it feels more like information. And then when I feel information is when I feel like it's slow. Like I'm not seeing the things that makes me
Well,
lean in.
but that's what I was getting at. It's like this stuff talking about time jumping.
Yeah.
The whole series is one linear story with massive time jumping. And what's hard about that is some of the stuff they lead up to, they jump away from, or they just completely bypass to get to the next section of their story is arguably the really compelling stuff. So we're really just watching this giant show that kind of plays out as the transitional material that never made the other content.
It plays out like one big promotion of go watch these things. If you want to know what's happened, go watch. Oh, and we have an Ahsoka series that's about to come out
Right.
soon. But like,
Because
and
it's
then this
like
might,
the most climactic stuff isn't in this content. The most compelling stuff isn't the stuff in this content.
and
This
there's a
is the
piece
stuff
of
in
this
between all.
content that's not even in any content because I think Clone Wars Anakin is still good. It's not. It hasn't hit the third the third in the trilogy yet, in the first trilogy. So we didn't really get a chance to see Ahsoka mourn her mentor's betrayal for real. Like we see her training, and then it flashes forward to like Jedi's are on the run. She's in hiding, but we don't get to see her deal with that in any other content. Like this would have been the content. I honestly would have preferred this to it could a time jump, but to focus it on her. I didn't need to see what's this Dooku
Dooku.
because we
Yeah.
like if you follow the content, you know what's going to happen with him, you know. But to follow her coming up, having this mentor as a Skywalker, and then
Right.
the betrayal, and he slaughters everybody. I'm like, I would want to see it through her point of view, especially we got an
Right.
Ahsoka series coming out.
Well, and it was largely following her. I mean, that opening episode with her as a kid riding the tiger's back and stuff, that was like
Yeah.
a very cool moment.
But what did that mean to you guys? So in the first episode, you know, her mother goes hunting with her, and it gets attacked by like a freaking saber-tooth tiger after they took down whatever that thing was,
Deer elk thingy.
elk,
Yeah.
yeah. And then like through just the pure joy and innocence of a baby, the saber-tooth tiger doesn't just eat
Well,
it.
I didn't buy that. The way that read to me was when the village elder, I'll call her, said she's Jedi. Everyone who knows Star Wars knows that one of the Jedi things they have is mind manipulation. So
Yeah.
on some telepathic level, that's kind of the way I read that. She had
That's,
manipulated
Oh
her
yeah, that's what I got too.
tiger's natural instincts.
Yeah.
over my head, over my non-Star Wars fan head. Wow. Okay.
I could listen. I could be. It
No,
could be just the
that
innocence of a baby, but it seems to me that's why her being a Jedi was relevant.
what you
Yeah.
just said justifies why that episode even exists. Like
Right.
if it had nothing to do with her powers as a Jedi, then what was the point? You changed my entire viewing experience, right? I loved it. It's great.
Great. You got it.
I really enjoyed Dooku and the idea of, you know, the Jedi just being like what was the term they used? Like your
Pawns, puppets.
pawns and puppets for
Yeah.
the Senate or whatever. You just do whatever you're told. And the idea of the Sith being freedom in a way.
Right.
You know, it's
Yeah. And then it was funny with Samuel L's character coming back into it being as rigid. I don't remember him being that stringent in the live action.
but he might be in Clone Wars because they're all in Clone Wars, the animated series.
Mm,
So it's like it's hard to know like how much of and the actor that voices him in this voiced him in Clone Wars. So I'm like,
right.
how much of this is picking up from the movies, or is it leaning heavier on the animated series' tone?
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
You know, watches all of it. He would have been really great to have here right now. Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought the fighting was excellent. I thought like, we could use more choreo. I think I wanted more choreography to tell you the truth.
Yeah. I mean, I really liked how they developed Sokka's abilities, and when Anakin went rogue with the training program because he scoffed at the whole thing in the
Oh,
first
yeah.
place. Like
Yeah,
I appreciated that episode a lot too.
I leaned in on that one.
But then that also goes back to that whole episode really led up to, is that Bad Batch?
That dude's in Bad
Yeah,
Batch. I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they led up to this massive fight scene that was about to go down. You're like, And he even says it. Let's hope all that training pays off. And you're
You
like,
got to go watch Bad Batch.
but that's what I'm saying. So like
I mean,
anyone who's just watching this isn't seeing the payoff of some of these moments. You
I
know?
don't think you really need to go see Bad Batch. That was the moment where all the clones were activated to what was it?
Yes.
Article, no, what was it? Something 88. Article 88? Right? You know what I'm talking about, right? Because
Right.
every clone has like a chip in their head, and
Mhm.
when activated, they all follow a certain protocol, and that's pretty much kill the Jedis and follow pretty much the Empire. So I think Rex, his malfunction, or he had his taken out at some point in time, so that therefore he didn't follow the suit, but he kind of went along with it, so kind of be like a double agent type of thing.
Mhm.
And the
Mm.
Bad Batch, they also had the same thing. I mean, the Bad Batch kind of followed with that, but with Ahsoka, you kind of see how she was able to somewhat survive it, I guess, without actually seeing an actual fight. But you kind of understand how she kind of got to that point.
That would have been, if there was ever a fight you wanted to see in this content, that was the sequence. You know,
Yeah.
for me,
So the,
that was the sequence because we spent a whole episode watching her train like a badass. So we're like, this is gonna be. Okay, that's over. All right, what's next?
and I guess it's fine because they're like, listen, we have the money and we just made this for the people that watch everything. If you
Right.
don't watch everything, then we don't care. Go watch Mandalorian. We made that for you. But for those who watch everything and suffer through the prequels, these are going to give you some nice, fill in the holes moment. I love the mention of like Duke was saying, Maul wasn't supposed to kill, Qui-Gon. Like I could have turned, like I'm sure that
Yeah.
conversation didn't come up, and people would have probably wondered, maybe watching the prequels, how was that dude so callous? And then we get to see here he wasn't.
Right.
Like he was like, I was planning on
No, but
turning
we
you.
also see that he was when he takes out
That was sad
Oh
though.
yeah.
oh,
What's her name? Yaddle? Yaddle?
Yaddle. Yeah. YADD AL.
Yeah.
Yaddle.
Yeah.
Yaddle. It was like Yaddle.
And that's
Whatever.
crazy because I believe that I forgot I don't actually remember the name of the species, but they're like rare in the universe. They're not,
Yeah.
The
a lot of them.
Yodas, you
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And their relationship, they were friends, yo. And he,
Yeah.
and he and he mourned her death when he thought she got crushed. Like he looked sad, like it had to be done, and she wasn't crushed, so he had to like kill her
Fuck.
twice.
But like what? Oh man. Like her misplaced sense of, I don't know, why she opened the thing instead of going to her ship that was right there.
Do you think she tried to kill him, or she was in self
No,
defense mode?
no, she was. I never saw her go for a killing blow.
That's the
Yeah.
problem with Jedi's, man. Jedi's. That's why they always get killed, with the exception like Luke Skywalker. They always get killed by Siths because they're like, it's always defense, and they
Right.
always want Obi-Wan. Like they always go down. It's like, come on, man.
Well, that's the way of the Jedi, man.
And I would have like I said, as much as I love the Dooku part and all that stuff, I would have been cool with it just focusing on Ahsoka, like how she went from that village to being brought in, and when her training starts. I would have been cool with the 6 mini time jumps of just focused on her, because that's kind of what it ended being, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'd say she was the B plot.
So then she can't be, but then became the A at like episode 5.
Well, by the training sequence, she became the A plot.
Yeah, because then episode 6 was about her in that village, which
But
was pretty
then, but
cool.
then neither one of the plots played out.
You saw her. What do you mean?
No, I mean neither. What was the conclusion of this series? We see him become a villain. We see someone on the light side turn to the dark side. That was the series, right? So
Right.
it really was about Dooku's
I mean, you
Sort
get
of.
the point with her where she kind of
Then
like
he's gone.
puts up the lightsabers. I mean, not really puts up the lightsaber, but like she said she's done with fighting, so she becomes like this pacifist in a way.
Right.
But then she,
Because we know we got to get to where we saw her. I'm sure in the Clone Wars, but also in Mandalorian, and she's in her new series. So I think where we see how one becomes a villain with Dooku, here we see the launch pad
Yo,
for her
and
to have her own.
how sick was that final showdown she had
It was
when
yo,
the
it was shots. It was like it wasn't shot, it's animated, but like the fire behind them was like straight up old school
and
samurai.
how effortlessly she dispatched the guy. She has no weapons, and I'm sitting here going, "Is she gonna get her lightsaber here?" And then it was so much more
She
eloquent.
just took his, and it was
Oh,
like, don't you know I was trained by your master? Like whoever you answered to trained me in the most brutal way possible.
yeah. So it's
Uh,
like, yeah, I agree. I think they could have leaned, if I'm being preferential, I think they could have leaned a little more heavily into rounding out her story and letting Dooku be the B plot of the thing.
or find a way to have it be more simultaneous. Like while one's rising, one's falling. But I don't think it was supposed to be any of that. I think it's just supposed to be a little bite size for those who really engage with the content.
It
It
was,
wasn't for us.
but most people are binging this thing. They're little 15-minute segments for the most part. So anyone who's sitting down to watch it probably not everybody, but I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of people who watch that content are just clipping to the next one really quickly. So inadvertently, you're watching a 1 hour movie. You know?
Right. And
Yeah.
I would have never watched this on my own if not for the podcast, because I know I don't lean in hard enough. But anyone who's going to sit down and watch this, I assume they watch Bad Batch, they watch Clone Wars, they watch all they watch all the Star Wars content. So for them, I was reading reviews from fans. They were giving this a 10 because they had enough head canon and stuff in their head. Like they're watching this as it blends into every memory they have,
Yeah.
which, I
But I
guess
mean,
that's the way it's
that's how
intended.
I experienced it too. But it wasn't, to me. It felt, but you don't have the payoff unless you jumping from that time jump into the headcanon moment. A lot
You
of
wa-
these,
if you watch Clone Wars and you're all the way in, your mind's doing it for you. Like you're not
Yeah.
even. You're like, this is the moment before. Like you're in. But if you didn't, you're kind of
yeah,
Yeah.
like,
yeah,
this.
That's pretty much how I took it because I was like, I already knew what they were talking about, what scenes they were referring to, and whatnot, and what events. So it was pretty much just filling in I filled in the blanks on my own.
You watch Clone Wars, Rich? You watch?
Yeah, I watched it all.
Oh,
What?
you should be leading this whole conversation. You have
Uh,
so many questions.
all right.
So it was made for you, and
Yeah.
would you say this? If there was required watching, it'd probably be Clone Wars more than the prequels, or is it
Uh,
even?
I mean, it mixed with it all, like because you got the was it Qui-Gon Jinn? I keep messing his name up.
yeah. That's
Mm-hmm.
it.
But you get his death, and you kind of see the when he was a Padawan, because you really don't
Mhm.
get that in Clone Wars. I mean, yeah,
Right.
you don't get that in Clone Wars. You don't get that in the original series. He's pretty much a Jedi Master at that point. You get kind of the early stages of. I mean, you get that in Clone Wars as well. Early stages of Ahsoka's training, and like when she really got brutal with the training, which was dope. And then also when Dooku kind of you get that feel when Dooku like started going to the dark side at
Mhm.
that first scene when he
Mm-hmm.
that
Choked
first
him.
scene when he's like you
Oh,
kind of
it's
get
great.
the taste of
In,
that. That's when he started going.
in
At least
Clone
to me,
Wars, or the prequels.
that will be before the Clone Wars.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
That scene,
And
yeah,
that was nice. Like Qui-Gon's quick thinking. It wasn't like he tried to stop the guy himself. He went and got the prince to step
yeah.
in, knowing that that would be the thing to soften the moment. It was pretty nice.
I did have an issue with them not aging Dooku, but when Qui-Gon come back, he's full Liam Neeson.
Well,
Yeah,
to me, that felt like House of the Dragons. You're like, you literally swapped out actors, and these other guys just a little bit more makeup added,
Right, but this is
if that.
animation. They can do whatever they.
Yeah, well, but
Because it almost confused me. I had to pause it and go, "Who's? Oh, that is the same. Dang, he aged, but
yeah.
Dooku looked
yeah,
exactly the same."
yeah. Because
Um,
Dooku was like graying about around that time, right?
Hmm.
If I'm not
yeah, and if they
mistaken.
did anything, it was so subtle it didn't read for me.
Yeah,
And then I was a little confused because of the time jump. Because then the next episode, when Qui Gon's dead, I kind of missed it until we got to the halfway part. Like, Oh shoot. Okay. The whole first movie just happened between these episodes.
Yeah.
Got it.
Exactly.
Um so yeah. I don't want to labor this. I don't really have much more to
Well,
add.
the other thing we talk about a little bit is just the animation style. So I'm medium on this animation style specifically because it's an odd blend of like the landscape shots look like they could just be CGI in movies half the time. And
Mhm.
then the cartoon faces are an odd blockish form where they lack definition and detail. So to me, it's a funny mashup of animation styles. The CGI
Mhm.
thing, like it's water in it. Look, there was a stream at one point or something of water, and it looked like the realest water. And I'm like, it's odd to see something that then the protagonists and the characters in it are, I don't want to say globular, but they're more like Pixar-ish.
Yeah, there's more of a style to them, whereas the landscape looks more realistic. I
It's like,
wonder if because Bad Batch is that way too, and I think when
Yeah.
Clone Wars was that Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network, I forget which one
right.
it dropped
I
on.
think it's Cartoon Network.
Cartoon Network. They modeled this style after that. They were like, we wanted to feel like a continuation of
Right.
that. So it's almost like
But then
they
like
had
this
to.
the spaceships felt like it could have been from the movies was how
Hmm.
realistic they looked in some of the shots. It was an
Hmm.
odd mashup to me. It just felt like interesting.
Yeah, I was. I guess I've seen parts of Clone Wars and stuff. I knew it was coming. I accepted it going in. As much as I like the choreography, I felt like, with the exception of that ending battle, they could have had more fun with it. Like the fight that Dooku had with the woman that's like Yoda was
Yeah,
great, but I felt like that looked like it could have been live action. But like, this is animation. You can do more with their Jedi powers, or
right.
you can do the things that you can't do in camera. I
That's
was
such
hoping
a
to see
great
something a
point.
little bit more
Yeah.
different.
That's kind of the same point you made with our buddy Jason's comic book, right?
Oh
It's a
yeah,
comic book,
yeah,
so
yeah.
there's a certain kind of liberty you get to take with things when you can lean into the genre where you're actually playing it. And that's such a great observation. We're already in a cartoon CGI environment. If you're ever going to exploit something, now's the time to do it.
Because we saw Yoda flipping around like crazy in the prequels. Because it's like, oh,
Yeah.
how do you make him? So here it's like you don't have to do that here. She doesn't have to just like do backflips every 2 seconds while she fights. You can make it. You can do the things you couldn't do with your
Right.
CGI back then. But she's just kind of backflipping around.
That also reminds me of something unrelated. There's the kind of training mock-up sequence of that Werewolf by Night, the hallway fight combat scene
Mm-hmm.
is making its rounds through the internet, and it looks sick. But it also goes right back to what I was saying when I was watching the content. It's like it's so beautifully choreographed. The parkour elements of it. It's like even though it wants to be animalistic, it still just feels too beautiful, you know? Anyways, that's a like non sequitur, I
It's
suppose.
not though, because when Dooku's fighting home, I want to say I don't want to call her Girl Yoda,
Yada,
Yada,
Yaddle. Yaddle.
Yaddle.
yaddle.
When he's
Yeah.
fighting her, I didn't feel like he was trying to kill her because it was so beautifully and flipping. I didn't get the sense like there was danger until there was danger,
That's
till
so
it slowed
many.
down.
That's my biggest gripe with almost all Star Wars content, with the exception of some of the like Rebel. That was a little better for me, but the combat always feels stylized in a way where it's not visceral. It's not dangerous.
Hmm. Remember,
Um,
Chris and I, when we were kids, was watching Mortal Kombat. Chris is a martial artist, and his dad took martial arts too. We're watching Mortal Kombat, and Liu Kang's fighting Shang Tsung, and Liu Kang's fighting. And for some reason, he has his back turned to Shang Tsung, starts throwing elbows. And his dad is like, "Y'all, watch this crap is stupid. Who turns around in a fight and starts throwing elbows?" I mean, it looks fine, I guess, but it makes no sense. You never turn your back in a fight. He was like elbow, elbow, elbow. It's like turn around, you're gonna kick in the back of your head.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like that works, man. That works for a certain style, but you do lose the sense of danger. You do lose the sense of like, holy crap, you might die here if you don't step your game up.
Yeah,
You
there's
know,
a balance to be found. Obviously, everything doesn't need to be Born Identity or John Wick. That's not what I'm getting at. But
John Wick though.
but I will say that, and this is my pet peeve with just combat in general. And I think even animated combat, it wants to feel, regardless of how stylized or choreographed or beautiful it is, it has to feel spontaneous. It has to feel unrehearsed. It has to feel like it's a response.
That last fight she had,
Oh, that was so
Ahsoka,
gorgeous, man.
because
That one was good.
it felt like everything you're saying. It was stylized, it looked beautiful, but then the way she was evading him as an audience member, we're like, "What's your move?"
Yeah.
What? And that's where you want us. You want us in like she's in danger. She doesn't have a lightsaber. What's your freaking move? And then she does something that makes the most sense. The character did something that made sense. I know how
Yeah.
to get your weapon, and I'm not gonna get your weapon and do a backflip and pose. I'm gonna just take your sword and cut you down.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It's storytelling. Combat is storytelling, but if normal storytelling is pedestrian in nature, combat is the most heightened form of it because of the stakes usually. And so they need that kind of attention to the details in order to get it where it still feels authentic.
Yeah. And
Right.
remember, as kids, we didn't care about that stuff. So you see somebody in a fight and they run to a backflip off the wall. We're like, oh! And as we get older, we're like, why did you leave the fight to do a backflip off the wall?
Yeah, but that's why. But listen, man, that's what I'm getting at with Snyder. Snyder makes choices because they're cool, but he doesn't always make choices because they're right or justified. Right?
I,
Like it's cool to kill Jimmy Olsen, but it don't make sense, man.
no, it
You
did
got to
make
make a different
no,
choice.
no, no, no. Hold on, hold
Wait
on,
a
hold on,
minute.
hold on, hold on.
What?
It
Hey,
made
man.
Snyder makes complete sense. He just bastardizes the content.
Well, however you want to say it, then.
But that Jimmy Olsen, who's in the CIA, that got his
But the
cover
fact that
blown,
Jimmy Olsen was a
makes
CIA in the first
so
place,
you don't like the story, but within the story that's told, he
you know,
should have got a bullet in the head.
the truth of the matter is, most of the time when I give a rating on something, the majority of that point system goes towards the story. It's like if I can't get behind the story, I can't agree to the cinematography. I can't agree to the
Right.
acting choice. I
But
can't
to
agree to just
that,
about anything.
but to that, but the Jimmy Olsen thing's very unique because it's Rich. Will you agree with me and say, in that story, an undercover guy that gets his cover blown, getting shot in the head, is absolutely authentic.
That sounds about right. That sounds
But
like
Yeah,
it
if
but
usually happens.
why?
but if
Yes.
but if you're like,
Listen, I
but
agree
if
with
you
that
grow up,
too.
but if
But
you
what
grew
I
up with the
won't,
comics and you're like, that's not how Jimmy Olsen's supposed to be. He shouldn't be there. Then you're bumping against the story that's told. But the story that's told is fine. You just don't like what they did with the changes they made. But it
and
makes
listen, if
sense.
Clark Kent is a drug smuggler who sells women on the black market, then I'm going to have problems with the storytelling and the choices you're making with the content of the characters.
That's
Okay.
true. You still base that off of content that
Listen,
you read
Rich, I'm
before you
making an
got to the
extreme
movie.
example, but that's how it felt like when Jimmy Olsen's a CIA agent.
That's because
I'm
you
not
know
saying
who.
he. What are we even talking about?
That's
We're
because
talking about
that
Star Wars
because we're
again.
talking about because that says you know who Jimmy Olsen is, but for Rich, you don't care about Jimmy Olsen. He was like, that's about right. You
No,
got
it
your
just he
cover
was
blown.
unfazed by it. It didn't matter. And I'd say, right, it didn't matter. So why'd you make the choice in the first place? Wait,
Because
how this is relevant somehow? How we get off
this
topic,
is
but it still
relevant
matters?
because you talked about how it has to be authentic in the story. Then I had to
Right.
call a flag on the play because I said to the story that Zack Snyder chose to tell, whether you like it or not. Within that story, it was authentic that
I
that
guess
guy
I'll
got a
say this.
bullet to the
Let me
head.
say this. Let me say here's how I feel about this, and we keep coming back to it. This is your opinion is that when a director, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's my
Mm-hmm.
understanding. My understanding of your opinion is that when a
Mm-hmm.
director walks into a thing, they get a license to make some choices with the way they want to tell that content. In my rebuttal, though, I say if I'm selling you something that's supposed to be a strawberry,
Okay.
that at the end of the day, after I've distilled its essence, if you're walking away and you're tasting, I don't know, tuna fish, then I've totally missed the point. It's got to still be the essence of a strawberry. And some of these directors walk in here and they distill the essence of years of content, and they somehow manage in instances to turn strawberries into tuna fish. And I'm going,
But
yeah, I
this,
get that there's artistic choices that can be made, but you still got to give me a
no,
strawberry.
but this is what I'll say to you is that
Rich is debating about
the
whether or not.
comic books don't do that. Most of us lean into a
But
specific period in comics and we lean into it. So when we watch it, we'll go, yeah, Tony Stark died at the end of Endgame. No, he's alive in the comics. He never made that
but that's why I'm
sacrifice.
talking about distilling it. You still have
But
to distill the essence of a thing.
But it's a different universe, though. It's not the comics.
it's
The
never the
essence,
comics.
the
Yeah.
essence of the heartbeat of these
The
things.
Joker never killed Batman's parents, and Batman never let Joker just fall off a cliff. But we
I
watch that
agree.
movie, but we
I
say
agree.
but to a lot of us, that's Batman. So I would say you're allowed to take license. You're also allowed to hate it. But my thing is, does it make sense within the world you set out to create? I may hate it, but I'll still go, yeah, Jimmy Olsen, it was stupid for you to use Jimmy Olsen like that. But the way he got killed in that story, that makes sense.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have
There
been
is.
there. I don't think, but that makes sense.
This
Cover
is
got
one of those
blown.
things where a year from now you're gonna call me up, Lawrence.
No,
and go,
it's
"Yeah,
been 10
you know,
years since
stop,
Man of
stop,
Steel.
stop the Olsen thing.
It's
Stop the
been
Olsen
too
thing.
long.
I owe you an apology. You're right.
It's been too
Strawberries should
long.
taste like a strawberry.
No, man, he took that strawberry and he made like he put it in salad. You go,
I'm not
strawberries
saying
shouldn't
you
be in
can't.
salad. Some
I'm
Strawberry
people
not
should
saying
not
you.
be in salad.
some people like them in salad, Rich.
I'm
That's the way
not
it
saying you
is.
can't do a fusion thing, but the essence of the thing should still be the essence of the thing.
That's never been true in any of these movies.
Right.
Organic
Well,
web
that's
shooters.
why I have
Why?
gripes with a lot of these movies.
Spider-Man has organic web shooters.
No. I'm not
No,
talking about that.
no,
That's not what I'm talking about.
no, but
No.
no.
I'm
Listen,
talking about the essence of the
that's the
heartbeat of that
essence. By you
character.
giving him organic web shooters, we never see Peter Parker's intellect. We never get to see his inventive and creative mind. That's a part of his character. He's able to build a lab in his basement. We didn't have that in the Raimi movies because they distilled his intellect. They messed with the part of his essence. That wasn't smart Peter Parker.
No.
But we were cool with it.
Yeah.
Because the director said there's no way a high school kid's going to make this thing that doesn't exist in his basement. So he got rid of it. We were cool with it. They all do that. Now, you love Superman, so you have a problem with it. I'm sure if there was a Spider-Man fan who saw that, they felt the same way you do about Jimmy Olsen.
Well, that's also why they made the.
See how you know how silly that is? You can't even say it with a straight face.
Like Jimmy Olsen, Jack. But because
All
you're in. You're in. And someone who grew up with Superman that's like, say your prayers, say your vitamins, are like, why is he kissing Lois and making her forget things? This feels like a weird part of the movie.
I agree. That's an odd thing.
They all do it.
And I don't co-sign to that choice. And I don't co-sign to Superman callously throwing all the villains into a bottomless pit where I'm sure they landed pretty hard. And Superman has like super hearing, so he heard the thud and their death
And
screams.
all the villains, Rich, and Superman 2 and Superman 5 Zod and all the villains, he throws them to their deaths after they've all lost their powers. So he
crazy.
just took them to jail.
Crazy.
He just kills them all. But
Yeah,
it's the
I don't
70s.
I don't co-sign on that.
70s.
So when you're distilling the essence of a thing, everyone, even when you go, what's the grandfather of all superhero movies? Christopher Reeve's Superman 1. I'm not saying they nailed it.
Right. So I guess it comes down to what's nailing it, and did they execute the story that they decided to tell? That's all you can really do.
Let's wrap that back around to Star Wars, and we got one hell of a content.
For those of you who are like, they stopped. I came for the Star Wars, and they're talking about Superman. Well, if you can see our background, and if you're listening to it, you see our image on our podcast. We're all ripping our shirts open with Superman S's or J's or C's or L's. So we lean heavy into that. And Jack and I argue about Jimmy Olsen all the time. And Rich gets tickled at how much Jack cares about Jimmy Olsen. So much so, if Jack had all the money in the world, he would make a Jimmy Olsen film starring Leonardo DiCaprio. And we would just watch him.
Just
They would watch that. People would
Jimmy
watch that.
Olsen do his taxes, deal with his prostate enlargements.
If Leo were in a live action Jimmy Olsen film, people would watch that.
And you know, if he was
He's
in
on
it,
his
they would take
third
liberties,
marriage. His
and
kids
you
hate
would
him.
hate
He
it.
lives in a crappy apartment.
So back to
Olsen.
Star Wars: Tales of the Jedi.
Right. So in conclusion,
In conclusion,
the combat matters, ladies and
the
gentlemen.
combat matters, and I would say, although a lot of this went over my head, I think they set out to tell the story they wanted to tell, and I think they told it well.
Yeah. Like it was as we say in the anime world, it was filler. But it's filler that kind of you've already watched, if you watched all the content up to this point, it kind of fills in the blanks from there. Because
Right.
usually filler stuff is like in anime, is just like stuff that happens. Like, maybe not have an impact on the story. But at this point, you kind of see behind the scenes what you didn't see leading up to some of these points, and some stuff that then maybe you can see how, like I said, Dooku, how he kind of starts out leaning towards the dark side.
And I guess I would usually say, well, anyone should be able to jump in. Like that's how something's good. Anyone should be able to start in. But I feel like with this, no, you shouldn't. That's not who they didn't make it for anyone just coming in, and they're okay with that.
Yeah.
So
'Cause
for that,
it's the filler you didn't know you needed and actually probably didn't.
and if you didn't watch, like I said, they're okay with you not getting it. This wasn't for you. We didn't make it for you. This wasn't supposed to be for the casual viewer. This is supposed to be for those who have been with us this whole time. And for that, I give them an 8 for what they set out to do. Wasn't my 8, but if I've watched Bad Batch and I watched all these things and I jumped into this, I'm like, this would have been an amazing experience. An amazing experience.
You gave them an 8, but it's not your 8? How does that work?
Because I know what they set out to do.
You gave them an 8 based off of what you think they intended to create?
What they did create.
Not how it affected you.
I'm not the audience.
Well, how would you rate it?
5.
It's probably a little more accurate, though, for you, isn't
But
it?
no, because I know that this required homework, and I didn't do the homework.
So then would I give Black Adam a 10 based off of they probably did exactly what they intended to do?
No, because it didn't impact you. This would have impacted me if I did the homework. That's why I give it a higher score. If I watched all that stuff, I know I would have enjoyed it more. You didn't enjoy Black Adam.
If you think that they deserve an 8 based off of what they intended to do, but you would have given it a 5, shouldn't you probably give it something in between the two? No?
Because my 5 is based off of ignorance. I don't know what they're trying to tell me. That's why I gave it a 5. It's not their fault. I didn't do the homework.
Well, then you would give it a blissful 5 because that's normally how ignorance works.
All right.
I think that if I did the homework and watched Bad Batch and Clone Wars and had all that in my mind and I watched this, I'd probably be like, this is a 7.58.
All right, we'll put a pin in that. Let's go to someone who has watched all the content. How would you rate this, Rich?
I would rate it. I mean, see, now I was influenced by the rating that you told me that other people gave it. I would give it a 9. Be honest with you. It did what it's supposed to do, at least what I believe it's supposed to do. Just fill in the blanks, maybe give you a little bit more context on a couple of the characters. Yeah. I mean, going off of if you didn't know anything, and I get, I'll take a point off that if you didn't know if you didn't look at or seen or digested any of the other content, this stuff would be going over your head. Just like the fact that Ahsoka was using the Force and went right over Lawrence's head.
Over my head.
He
like,
thought
what
that
in
it
the
was
Disney Beauty and the Beast moment is this?
He thought it was some innocent baby, communication with animals. Right. No, it was.
But that's not and that's not the content's fault. It was my fault.
Yeah. So I would say it. I would give it I'll give it a 9 because I think it served what it had to serve. But people would definitely miss out on it if they didn't, get the rest in.
You gave it a 9?
Give it a 9, bro.
All right, here's where I'm super conflicted, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
I'm conflicted
It's because
because
you said you're conflicted. You turned your head. You adjusted your hat. There's a whole
Right.
for those listening. There's a whole cinematic quality
yeah.
happening right now.
So go check it out on YouTube.
Yes, please.
For those of you on YouTube, sorry, we're talking about being on YouTube. All right, here's why I'm conflicted though. I enjoyed Black Adam more than I enjoyed this. I
Okay.
gave Black Adam a very low score based off of the story being arguably paper thin. But I enjoyed that content way better than this content. And if I had to watch one of them over, I'd watch Black Adam in a heartbeat.
But
Happily.
you made a point to say last episode that you judge the content by itself because I brought up Samaritan, and you were like, I judge the content on its own.
That's right.
Oh,
So yeah,
That's true. So, but that's why I'm feeling conflicted because I would give this a higher score. But I wouldn't say it was better than a thing I gave a lower score to. So it's odd. Isn't that odd? That feels odd to me.
no, the way I
You're
score
saying-
things is that's why mine work. You can track the way I give ratings throughout the whole thing. It's like, yeah, I would never give Black Adam a score close to the Samaritan ever in life.
yeah, I wouldn't. Did I? I think I did though. What did I get?
But
You gave it a 5.
yeah,
But I, really, I mean,
but that's
I
how you
feel
really feel.
yeah, that's like
You probably
Black
won't.
Adam.
You probably won't watch it again.
In the grand
Black
scheme
Adam,
of
I probably
things,
won't watch it.
in the grand scheme of things, it arguably might be a 5 as far as the merit of the content. But it's a good time. And so being a good time,
You don't
Black
factor
Adam.
in, but you don't factor in a good time as part of your rating.
Well, when I was thinking about Black Adam coming right off of the Black Adam, I was thinking, what a bunch of missed opportunities. Unfortunately, that's where my head is at. But it was a good time. I enjoyed it. And that last post-credit scene, my God, that's a 10 out of 10 right off the bat.
Did you think that naturally, or did you like also like you're about to give it a review? Like if you weren't giving it a review, you just went in.
Well, listen, I endorse everyone watch this movie. Black Adam, people should probably go support. If you like content, this is good content.
Jack, you changed your rating on Nope. If you got to change it for Black Adam, it's fine to rate this one lower. If you need to rate Black Adam higher, you can change it. Because that's what's happening. Because you're about to give this a higher score than Black Adam, but you didn't enjoy this as much as Black Adam, so you're conflicted.
Yeah,
And it's because you don't take in your child. Like Chris gives ratings off of just joy.
just pure.
Chris,
it made me feel a certain way, so here it is.
And there's merit to that too. There's merit to that. That means they did something in there right, and it made you feel what they wanted you to feel. You can give Black Adam a higher rating. Go ahead.
We'll come back to Black Adam later. Let me give this a 6. I give this a 6 because without diving into the context of all the other content, this content, I might even give it a 5 based off of that rating, because without the other content, then you're left with a series that looks good, has heart, but ultimately continues to lack a climax and payoff, because everything kind of builds to a thing and then jumps away from a thing. So when you're looking at the merit of content just based off of the merit of that content, this is fun and looks good, but ultimately it lacks at every other turn.
What if you look at it like Avengers Endgame? Like I go watch Endgame and I give it a poor score because I never saw Infinity War, so I didn't get half of it. But but as its own, I didn't watch that. But on its own, it's 5, and it's like, no, you were never supposed to watch it on its own. You're supposed to watch Infinity War first, and then Endgame. So look at this like look at this series like it's a sequel, and you didn't watch the first 2 movies
or filler. Because you're looking for a climax or something. They're not going to give it to you in this because they already give it to you somewhere else.
That's why it's weird to rank this thing.
But it was designed that way.
Filler episodes.
But like in what they set out to do in its design, did they achieve it? and did it impact you? And I will say, I didn't watch a bunch of the other stuff, and I still cared about Ahsoka. I still cared about the Yoda woman.
I got to give it a 6. Here's why. Because something like Visions that pops around, where largely the whole content was lame to me, that one episode 1 of Visions, was so cool. Everything about it was cool. There wasn't that moment in this for me, with
It
the
was the
exception
end
of
of the series.
with
That's
the
right.
exception of that one moment. And there's a lot of good moments throughout it, like her riding the
That's
tiger.
an unfair comparison. You took an anthology series
Yeah.
where you don't have to know anything, and you came into a series where they're like, you have to know
But I
stuff.
should still have more than one moment in 6 episodes. In almost 2 hours content, and 6 different bite-sized chunks.
Technically, you had one moment in that too, because you only like that one episode.
Yeah, right. That's why I gave that thing a low score.
If I saw Endgame without seeing an Infinity War, I would give Endgame a low score. And they'd be like, well, you should just watch Infinity War first, if that's the case, if you don't get it. You're giving it a low score because you didn't get it.
No, I got it, and I've watched most of the content.
You don't watch
I have, though. I
don't
got it, and I've watched most of the content.
You
It's
don't
still
watch
just
you
filler
don't
that
watch
doesn't stand alone.
Bad Batch. You don't watch
No,
that.
that's true. You got me on that one. I don't watch that. But I've watched Clone Wars, and I've watched a lot of the other content. And so this is fun, but it doesn't stand alone.
I'll never argue against your rating because your rating's your rating. You're the one that said you're conflicted. So we're really questioning you because we don't know what's going on. You're never conflicted about how you feel about a thing. What's happening?
Well, I gave it a 6.
What did you give Black Adam?
I gave it a 5.
Oh, wow.
Which maybe should have been a 6.5.
Your whole world is coming undone.
It is.
In public. I love it.
You know, the problem is we shouldn't be rating this content in the first place. We don't have the authority, although we do have the opinions. And listen, I'm not saying we haven't studied.
All you need is the internet and opinion and the platform.
That's the problem. That's the problem with this art form. Everyone thinks they're a judge and a critic, and
Jack, that is why we have this podcast. Stop telling
right,
people not to listen to our podcast.
Yeah, what is going on?
Yeah, man, I'm conflicted on this one.
Jack is just gonna be a stop listening to
I'm conflicted on this one because
turn it off.
Now they got our listeners are like, yeah, why are we listening to you guys talk about this? Dang it, Jack.
Yeah, you're right. Listen, if I were you, I'd turn this off right now.
No, he doesn't mean that.
Can you unlike a thing after you've liked it?
What he really means is leave a glowing review. Jack, it's valid because we're not in the thick. We're fans. We're fans. Right. And sometimes we're super fans and sometimes we're casual fans, but we're fans.
You know what? I think that's another thing that affects the rating. My desire for Black Adam to be better content was higher than my desire for this content to pan out. It was okay being filler.
Jack, we know you biased as hell when it comes. We all know you biased. If Superman is anywhere near it, we know you're looking at it through a magnifying glass.
All right, fair enough. So 6.
What was that movie we watched? And I was like shocked that Jack, like, was it like the Adam Project? I'm like, I know Jack's gonna find holes in this. I know he's gonna talk about. I know you did, but there's things you like. And then you like it and you accept it. And then there's things that you don't like and you can't get over their costumes not being dirty enough. It depends on what.
Oh, man. Yeah, that Predator movie. No texture. No texture in that Predator movie. I'm sorry. There just wasn't.
That's how I know if Jack likes a thing. If he likes a thing,
I'd say that even about the Woman King. Is that what it's called? The Woman King?
You did say that. You said you wanted more texture.
It was a lack of texture. It looked like they all went to the Gap to get their costumes.
And you said the fighting felt too
stylized.
Like
Black how Widow. Many people are doing like parkour moves? This is a period piece. It wants to feel earthy and grounded. And like I was talking about, it wants to feel visceral and unexpected. Right. Oh, man, these guys just...
They didn't
look,
tell you
my number is...
from Africa? No, they didn't tell you that?
Yeah, right. That's right. In the 1800s? Thank you very much.
So I think
In closing,
Rich gave it a 9.
how'd you give it a 9 though?
I gave it a 9.
You didn't even give Bleach a 9.
Listen. I'm gonna give it a 9 like this. It's a 9.
Ooh, and that's all they got to say. That's all
I
they got.
have to give it a 6 if that's the case. We just given fictitious numbers for this content.
So 9, 8, and a 6. That brings us to like 7, 7.5, right? 7.
I'll punch it into the thing for us.
What are you gonna
show a picture here so we can cut around the thing of
No, that's too much
a
editing.
calculator.
I won't. Rich is just gonna do some hand signals
6
while you're doing your
plus
thing.
7 plus. Oh no. 6
I know those.
plus
If you ever seen an
9.
unboxing, go into our playlist. If you're watching on YouTube, if not podcast, Rich is this is what he does when he does unboxings. He does the hand stuff. I love it. Yes.
Yeah, you're right. It's a 7.6 repeating, so we'll call it 7.5.
7.5, which is probably fair. So that's our take on Superman, Zack Snyder, Star Wars, fighting
Predator.
choreography, Predator, and Black Adam. Thank you guys.
Happy Halloween for all those catching this after the fact.
Halloween. Yo, that's our take on it. It's a good ride. If you're down with the Star Wars content, it's a freaking wonderful ride. You already got Disney Plus. What are you doing over here? Check out our playlist. We got unboxings, we got reviews, we got everything. Go on below. You'll see in our description that we have the podcast, we have TikTok, we have Instagram, we got everything you need to blow your geek mind. We'll be back. Same bad time, same bad channel. What's up, y'all? Welcome to Three Brothers and a Shot of Milk. We're talking